Today's webinar should be open for all now. So good evening and good morning. Welcome to IDP South Asia webinar to Discover Ontario, which is Canada's hub for international education. So we are living in the time of tremendous change of policies, change of technology, change of economy, and blah, blah, blah. Changes create a world of uncertainty, but change also creates an opportunity to do things differently, discover fresh perspectives, and take conscious decisions. So, what is the opportunity today's audiences have? When it comes to international education, Canada has always ranked number one across the world for its fantastic opportunities of affordable and high quality education and PGWPs. So is the province of Ontario. However, with the policy changes in Canada, the state of confusion and anxiety have set up in young minds. To clear the anxiety and reveal the truth, we need to have collaboration. And now more than ever, at IDB, that's just what we are doing. So today's session is all about walking you through the real situation of what makes Canada as the top study destination by bringing you across the industry leaders and experts speak and advise you directly. IDP, being the leader of the sector, brings you the correct perspective to enable you take most informed decision. We have been hearing Canada government streamlines its work permit PGWP in 6 fields of study, which was misunderstood as limiting the areas or programs leading to work permits. Whereas reality is that these 6 fields of study makes it more easier and streamlined for any student to choose their programs leading to future employment. We believe that bringing together the best and the brightest minds is the spark of today's webinar. So I welcome all the students, families from India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh who will benefit from this insightful discussion. I would like to thank and invite our esteemed panelists on screen and introduce them to all of you. So my first panelist today is Larissa Bezo. She's President and CEO of CBIE. Ms. Bezo has served in senior leadership positions in both public and not-for-profit sectors, including as the youngest deputy clerk in the history of Saskatchewan, senior advisor to a federal royal commission, and most recently as the interim president and chief executive officer for the Canadian Bureau for International Development. I'm fortunate to have personally witnessed Ms. Bezo as an accomplished and effective leader in navigating sensitive political, intercultural, international issues, and mobilizing resources while she was quizzing the Honorable Immigration Minister of Canada, Mr. Mark Miller, on behalf of the Canadian institutions. You really satisfied the House of Majority, Larissa. Welcome to the show today, and thanks for taking our time.
Thank you so much. As you mentioned earlier, it truly has been a very turbulent 12 months. And I'm so grateful for the space to be able to join our IDP colleagues, to be able to contribute to actually setting much of this in context and helping to provide a clearer sense of opportunity, and perhaps where there's still some ambiguity. For those that perhaps aren't as familiar with CBIE, we are the national association focused on international education in Canada. And a substantive part of CBIE's work is engaging with our Canadian education institutions, from school boards to post-secondary institutions, to ensure that the pathway for international students, in fact, coming to Canada is a strong one, is one that, in fact, provides opportunities, and one where institutions, given their commitments, are focused really on providing robust supports to students and ensuring that those opportunities are there. And one of the things that CBIE does on a regular basis, almost biannually over the last number of years, is we undertake an international student survey of students that are actually studying here in Canada, to really highlight and put a spotlight on their actual experiences. It's great to talk in policy terms, but if we're not actually asking the beneficiaries of the learning pathway to Canada what their experiences have been, for CBIE, I mean, this is paramount, and we really want to see very strong student-centered approaches. And so the last survey that CBIE conducted was just before the announcement of these policy measures, so in late fall of 2023. And at that time, we saw that, most students in Canada currently studying at different levels in the post-secondary space were having a good experience. They rated their experience across, the academic experience, the kinds of support services that were available to them, all of those things from, I would say, a very strong perspective. And, they acknowledged that, over the last number of years, there have certainly been unique challenges that they've had to navigate, certainly coming out of the pandemic, making sense of many changes in terms of what's happening at the community level. But overall, most students were thriving. What we did see, however, is that there has been over the last number of years, really since the pandemic, a small subset of students that were much more fragile, that were experiencing, whether that be challenges in terms of kind of meeting their day-to-day needs, challenges in terms of navigating the institutional situation, or perhaps, other challenges even in the space of mental health, et cetera. And so there has been a lot of focus on our institutions in terms of trying to really ensure that not only that supports are available, but that those students who require them are in fact making use of them. So when we step back and we take a look at the last 12 months, the pace of the changes, that were mentioned has been at breakneck speed. And I can be honest, for those of us, who are familiar with these policy frameworks, even for us, keeping up and making sense of a lot of this has been very, very challenging. So it shouldn't be surprising, sadly, for students or their families as they're trying to make sense of this, that there's a tremendous amount of confusion. I can honestly admit, even for us, our team at CBIE, these are immigration experts and policy experts. It has been a challenge to keep up. In fact, it's been quite exhausting. But what we've really been trying to focus on is bringing clarity in terms of what is factual, and one of those pieces I can, substantiate, as many of us on this call, we haven't closed Canada. There certainly is a very strong desire to continue to want to host international students. There are spaces on our campuses. We have institutions that are very, very keen and want to welcome those students. And whether that's in, smaller rural and remote communities, in different kind of northern parts of our provinces and our territories, whether that's in, other urban centers, there genuinely is space and a desire to host those students. And it's been challenging because with the decisions that our government has made, we know that often, it gives the appearance that we've closed the door. But I can tell you with certainty, we have not. And I think webinars such as these are really an attempt to try to sincerely demonstrate that, in fact, there is a desire to want to reassure students and families who may be considering Canada that this continues to be a very viable option.
Thank you
I
so
can
much.
also,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
it is, may I add one more thing?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. And, with these abrupt changes to the international student program and to the postgraduate work permit, there is still a lot to sort out. It- where the confusion very often comes is just in the sequencing and the timing of how pieces are implemented. I know institutions are working very hard to try to bring clarity in terms of what opportunities exist, where those parameters are. Um, and we've also, from a CBIE perspective, I think we're very focused on, outcomes for students. So over this last number of months, and we'll continue to do this into this year, we're really trying to work with the business community and with others to cultivate spaces where we can have conversations about how we do better in terms of supporting those postgraduate outcomes for students, who may be looking for opportunities to work, beyond the study period in Canada. And so I just want to reassure you that there are many across our communities very much committed to creating those spaces and ensuring that we're bringing clarity in terms of what this new policy framework looks like.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is a very, very satisfying response. In fact, this was one of the first questions I wanted to check upon with you, and for our audiences to know that the kind of steps and measures that CBI is taking with you and your team. for building up Canada's reputation as the top destination amidst this policy changes and confusion. So thank you so much, Larissa, for your inputs. So what I'll do now is that I'll come back to you and I'll introduce, first of all the rest of our panelists also today on the webinar. And then we'll take up one by one questions with all of you, which the students are voicing out from the countries that we are right now addressing. So our second panelist today on board is Alison Yocom. Alison is a Senior Director, International Undergraduate Enrollment at Queen's University. And she's a seasoned enrollment management professional with over 20 years of progressive leadership experience in Canadian post-secondary education. Her leadership continues to position Queen's University as a leading destination for students seeking transformative education in Canada. Her extensive experience across multiple institutions offers a comprehensive understanding of Canada's post-secondary education landscape, enabling her to guide students of all backgrounds towards finding their best fit opportunities. So thanks, Alison, and welcome to the show. I'll come back to your question later on. Our next panelist is Eric Simard, who is Director of International Recruitment and Market Development at Fanshawe College. Eric's journey in academia also includes a significant tenure at Ivey Business School, where he managed operations and admissions for master's programs. And Eric's expertise extends beyond Canadian borders, such as Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia. His international perspective is further complemented by his role at Conestoga College. Academically, Eric is pursuing a Doctor of Education in Educational Leadership from Western University and is an alumnus of the Ivey Business School holding an executive MBA. Thank you so much, Eric, for coming on board and being our panel. Welcome to the show. And yes, one more panelist whom you have been seeing in IDP's special webinars on Canada is Christine Waugh. Christine is Senior Vice President, Partnership and Stakeholder Engagement, North America at IDP. She leads the IDP's North America Client Relations, Marketing, and Client Success teams. Christine is responsible for the growth and expansion of strategic partnerships with institutions and sector stakeholders across Canada and the US. Christine, you are very popular in India, and I know that you are currently in Dallas, but do come over and hear our students sometime in India too. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd love to come over.
Thank you. And last but not the least, let me introduce to our panelist, Piyush Kumar, who's Regional Director, South Asia, Canada, and Latin America at IDP. Piyush is a seasoned business leader with over 24 years of experience. He oversees the execution of business strategy and manages the operating and service performance across student placement as well as IELTS. He's also a member of IDP's global leadership team and has played a crucial role in driving exceptional business growth and opportunities for the region and international markets. A highly passionate and successful P&L leader and a tech evangelist who believes that every business will be a technology business in the future. I think DeepSeek China has taken you very seriously, Piyush. Being a learner himself, Piyush took up advanced management program at MIT Sloan School of Management. Thank you, Piyush, for coming over and taking out time. So once again, welcome all the panelists. I am Mukta Sanjeev, Director Destination Canada, South Asia at IDP. These questions are the students' voice and perceptions from different parts of South Asia. So we have a team of experts backstage who simultaneously will answer the individual queries in the Q&A section. And towards the end, we will take up some posted questions to our panelists for their input. So my question to Alison would start from here, that we all know Queen's University has been ranked the most sustainable university in the world for the second consecutive year, with over 700 plus undergraduate programs in science, engineering, business, arts. University guarantees that students will find one to fuel their imagination. So my question to you, Alison, is that how has Queen's University adapted to recent IRCC policy changes? And what message would you share with the students who trust the university but feel uncertain about Canada's policy? I would expect you to be talking about some positive aspects you see for the aspiring students navigating this landscape. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Mukta. And thank you to my co-panelists and the audience here. It's really great to be able to spend some time with you. It's 7 a.m. over in Kingston, Ontario, Canada, so bright and early, and hopefully we'll get some clarity for all of our prospective students. So again, thanks for this question and the opportunity to answer. We at Queen's have really proactively adapted to the recent IRCC policy changes by making some substantial investments in programming and support systems that have been designed to help our international students navigate this new landscape with confidence and ease. We deeply value the rich and diverse perspectives that international students bring to our community, and we're really committed to providing that world-class experience for all of our students on campus. To address the current challenges and some of these uncertainties, we've introduced what we're calling the Queen's Commitment for International Students, which offers a range of benefits that include a residence guarantee with an optional early move-in to ensure a smooth transition when you arrive in Kingston, also pre-arrival services and airport pickup for students who are coming from abroad. We offer automatic scholarships and awards for students who are achieving a 90% average or higher in our Faculty of Arts and Science and our Smith Engineering program, helping them to recognize and support their academic excellence, but also to make sure that we are still an affordable option for these students. We know that cost sensitivity is something that we have to consider, and we want to make sure that we're doing our best to support students from all financial backgrounds. We offer optional paid internships in our participating programs, which will also enhance a student's employability and professional experience after graduation. We offer dedicated study permit supports delivered in partnership with Border Pass, which is a company that students can register with to get some customized advice and assessment on their study permit application that would help simplify and expedite the process. We've also hired our own individual student advisor who's RISIA certified and works right within our office with all of our incoming prospective students to navigate the study permit process and answer any of the questions that students may have in support of that. I talked a little bit about some of the comprehensive pre-arrivals to help students prepare when they arrive in Canada. So that's that early move-in. We have a full orientation program dedicated to them, as well as opportunities to build connections and community, ensuring that our students really do feel welcomed and supported when they come. On the more career side of the spectrum, we have access to academic and career advisors, as well as mentorship programs. In fact, our International Center has a dedicated international career advisor for our international students. And that, in partnership with the remaining international student advisors on campus, help to provide guidance with the post-graduation work permit application process, which will help open up pathways for their careers in Canada. One thing I do want to note is I know there's lots of confusion or questions around who is eligible for the PGWP and who isn't. The university degree programs, so all of our undergraduate degree programs at Queen's do remain eligible for the postgraduate work permit opportunities. So we just want to make sure that students are aware there are no restrictions or limitations when you're graduating with a Queen's undergraduate degree or an undergraduate degree from an Ontario university. One of the other positive aspects I just want to touch on regarding this landscape and the evolution of it is that it's really motivated not just Queen's, but a lot of universities across Ontario to really enhance the level of support and service that we are offering. Our international students can now expect more streamlined processes and more efficient pathways to our universities, including Queen's, making it much easier for highly qualified, serious applicants to join our vibrant academic communities. These investments really reflect our unwavering belief in the potential of international students and our commitment to helping them succeed at Queen's and beyond. So to the students, I will say, if you're feeling uncertain about Canada and its policies, we want to make our message very clear. We have a space for you. We welcome you, and we're here to support you every step of the way. Together, we feel we can turn challenges into opportunities, and we're really excited to help you embark on your journey with Queen's.
That's very reassuring, Alison. Thank you for your detailed explanation, right from accommodation to the student counseling exclusive services. everything is there, and I don't think so any reason should be left behind for a student to take a decision in these times as well. Wonderful. I'll come back to you. So we heard Larissa, we heard Alison, and now it's time that I should put my next question to Eric. So Eric, Fanshawe is a very, very popular choice in South Asia. I don't know if you are aware that in the Google search, you rank among the top 10 for the students' search in choices. And as a college, we all know that Fanshawe College is one of the top institutions of Ontario, offering more than 150 programs for international students. So your popularity stems from the fact of quality assurance to you endorse for each Fanshawe graduate and the employability compatibility. So my question to you, Eric, is that with ongoing concerns about student accommodation in Ontario and anxieties surrounding the job market for graduates from programs outside the popular 6 course categories, I'm referring to the 6 field of studies which IRCC announced. So how is Fanshawe addressing these challenges to support the international student success?
Thank you so much, Mukta. And thanks everyone for joining us today and having me as a panelist. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon. As Alison mentioned, colleges and universities across Canada have really spent the last several years building supports and infrastructure around how do we help and support international students as they transition to Canada. And I think most institutions have done an incredibly good job at that particular task, at building that infrastructure, building those supports, building those services for students. And so I think that's why you find such a strong reputation with Fanshawe and many other colleges and universities across Ontario. We do really have a wonderful education system here in Canada and especially in Ontario. And I know that that's really well recognized, as Larissa mentioned, around the world. In terms of housing, I mean, I think to be transparent, yes, it's harder than it used to be to find off-campus housing. I think it's okay for us to say that. It is harder than it had been 5 years ago. Absolutely, that's true. However, most institutions, and including Fanshawe, and I know Alison just mentioned it, we have a first-year guarantee. And basically, we have a spot in a residence on campus for all first-year programs or all first-year students. And so there is a spot for you here in Canada and a spot for you to live. And so that should alleviate some of that pressure. Lots of students, however, choose to look for off-campus housing. And so, you've got the guarantee, great, that's in your back pocket. But if you still look for off-campus housing, there's an entire team here at Fanshawe dedicated to helping support you find those spots within the community. And so they keep a long list of apartments. They keep a long list of spots where students can go and find housing support, of course. And in addition to that, we offer a program called TAP. And basically, that's an opportunity for students to connect, or future students to connect with current students. And within that platform, what we find is students have this question a lot, a housing question. And so there are students who are currently here in Canada already studying who are looking for a roommate next term. And so they post those positions and they have those communications and conversations independent of the college. And they offer those spots directly through our ambassador program. And so I would say that there's plenty and lots of opportunities to find those housing options. And so, while it is harder, it's not really an impossible task. It's not, we don't have hundreds of students coming to Canada without housing. And so, the media makes one thing, it makes it look like one thing, but what's actually happening on the ground is a whole different picture. The other thing I should mention about that is that with the government's changes and restrictions on the total number of students who are going to come to Canada in the next several years, it looks like years, there's just less students coming to Canada. And so there are more apartments available as a consequence of there being less supply of students. And so you'll see even more options become available as the current group of classes graduate and move out into the world. And into their full-time roles, and they'll leave those accommodations, that student housing, they'll leave those spots available for the next group of students who come in the door in May and in September and in January next year. So I think you'll find even more options, and this will alleviate a lot of the pressure on housing. In terms of employment, I would say that decrease in the total number of international students coming to Canada is also going to create great opportunity for those who do come. Because there's all kinds of infrastructure around London, Ontario, and in Ontario in general, I should say. And lots of opportunity, lots of growth. London's the fastest growing city in Canada right now. That means that there are roles and there are jobs in all aspects of the economy. So, if you come here for an ECE program, there is lots of childcare jobs in London, Ontario. We can't find nearly enough qualified individuals to fill those roles. But in addition to that, even programs for us that are no longer on the list of approved programs for PGWP, that creates a huge opportunity for part-time jobs, because you might come to Canada to study one of the 6 fields of study that you mentioned earlier, Mukta. You might come to study that and think about that for your long-term career, and that's great and that's important. But the student jobs in hospitality, in the restaurants, in the retail services, there's lots of those roles, and that will increase as we see a decrease in total number of students coming to our community. And so I think there's lots of opportunity both for part-time and full-time work in our community, and we're seeing demand from all aspects of our labor market, begging us to make sure that they're on campus and making those inroads to our college and into our students to try and secure those students for jobs before they go elsewhere. There's a note here on my question that was pre-sent, just to talk quickly about PALS. So I want to talk about that briefly. In Ontario, PALS were provincial attestation letters were issued to the colleges and universities just this past Friday. And so, for us at Fanshawe, we'll be issuing PALS later this afternoon for anybody who's applied and doesn't yet have one. So those will all go out very quickly, and then we process applications within 24 hours. And so, as students apply for the program, they apply, they'll be offered admission quite quickly, and then as soon as your deposit's in, of course, you'll be issued a PAL very, very quickly. That can happen as soon as that deposit comes in. So PALs are going out the door later this afternoon. We're doing one final test when I get to work this morning at my time, and then they'll be out the door. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Eric, for the wonderful ending to your inputs, because PAL is the only thing which is required right now by the students who are interested. And fantastic to hear that you are ready with the PALs for 2025 as well. So we'll discuss more with you, Eric, on some different topics, but I think right now I would like Piyush to enter in, and I would like to set up a context, because Piyush studies a lot of data and sees the trends by himself, not just through the statistics, but also through live there from across the offices in the country. So Piyush, you have studied extensively about provincial capacities to accept international students. And this policy announcement for lowering the student intake has not been received well by many Indian students, or even in South Asia also. So my question to you is that Ontario has long been a top choice of international students, particularly from South Asia. So do you still see Ontario maintaining this position? And what makes it attractive destination for the students? Could you please comment on this?
Yeah, sure, Mukta. Thanks for having me. You mentioned about that the number of the number of students who are now allowed to come to Canada has come down, and that has created some kind of negative sentiment. I mean, this is basically not the complete truth, because when you look at the number of students who are going to Canada or Ontario, you need to look at the context in which this number is, from where it is coming from. This number, which, for example, the number of students which Canada is talking about taking in 2025, would make it still perhaps the #1 destination country in the world. No other country is still taking so many students, right? Whether you talk about the US, the UK, Australia, any other popular destination, right? The number of students going to Canada is still going to be the highest. So that is point number 1. Now, when you talk about Ontario, I was looking at the data that next year, the cap for Ontario as a province is a little more than 116,000, where PAL is required, right? 116,000 is a huge number, right? How many countries do actually take up number of international students which are of this number? And this is the number only for Ontario province. Ontario traditionally has been the most popular destination or province within Canada, especially for students who are coming from South Asia. 1 or 2 years back, we used to look at the data, and more than 70% of students from South Asia used to choose Ontario province, used to choose an institution which is based out of Ontario province. So Ontario always has been very popular. Obviously, it houses cities like Toronto, which is the financial capital. Ottawa is the political hub, and obviously houses many multinational companies. The employment opportunities are perhaps the largest in this province, right? The province obviously has a deep pool of skilled talent, and it's perhaps the most well-known province within Canada for international students, and majority of the educational institutions, the largest number of educational institutions within Canada are in Ontario. So Ontario has always been the most popular choice, and I believe will continue to be the most popular choice, because 116,000 students can still go to Ontario in 2025, which is still a huge number. So I would repeat for all the students who are listening, this news about number of students coming down because of cap, well, that is correct. It is not the complete picture. The number of students going to Ontario or who will go to Canada is still perhaps the largest in the world. So we need to understand that this number in that context. Mukta?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Piyush, for throwing the light on the real picture of the numbers and the potential. And I'm sure listening to this, everybody would like to grab a seat in these 116,000 you said, correct? Okay, wonderful. Let me move ahead and put across my question to Christine now. And Christine, this has got a context that we know that over the next 5 years, biggest challenges for international education in Canada includes navigating global competition for top talent, addressing housing affordability issues. We have been referring about this overall in our discussion, and ensuring mental well-being of the international students. So, however, these challenges are paired with significant opportunities, such as Canada's reputation for high quality education, a welcoming immigration pathway. I can see a lot of questions in the Q&A section are related about immigration pathway only, and a commitment to diversity and inclusion. So embracing technology and education and creating stronger ties with global institutions can also position Canada as a leader in the international education sector. So the question for you, Christine, is that why is it a better time for international students to consider Canada, and how is IDP best placed to help them?
Thank you so much, Mukta. Okay, great question. I think, and thank you, Piyush, for putting those numbers in context. You always do a good job of that. And I think it gives us all a bit of comfort, because there's a lot of noise. So I want to start talking about first the noise that we hear, both here in Canada, but around the world. And I think social media certainly has a powerful role to play in that. And a lot of it's negative. So I say this every time I come on these webinars, I'm going to say it again, to consider the source that you're getting your information from. And I would really highly recommend that you ensure that you're getting the source of information from credible sources that are trusted, such as our panelists here today, institutions, people on the ground in Canada, your IDP counselors, the IDP teams all around the world, including here in Canada. So one of the things we've done, and to the point, why is it the best time to come to Canada? As a proud and happy Canadian, I would say it's always been a good time to come to Canada, and it still is. And we wanted to, because of this, and because a lot of the negativity and the noise that, Mukta, Piyush, you share this with us, and we see it, is we wanted to do an initiative where we worked with our institutions, like Queen's and Fanshawe, and students that are actually on the ground in school and working in Canada to tell their story of what life is like right now on campuses. And despite all this negativity, there's students thriving, studying, and working on our campuses everywhere in this country, across Ontario, and really from coast to coast. So I'd say consider the source. If you want to hear some of those student voices, I would go to idp.com and you can take a look at that. And that campaign we called There's a Future in Canada for You, because it's really true. And I think, so what else would I say? I mean, why is it a better time? I think Eric touched on this. Allison touched on this, Larissa touched on it. There's a lot more space, I'd say, though the number is still huge. There has been a drop in numbers. And I think some of the confusing changes that have happened over the course of the past year, now it's been a year, what's the date? Just over a year since the first policy announcement. It's left us all confused, but at the same time, we had a period of a correction and adjustment. And I think there's a lot of focus now, as you can hear from our panelists, on quality, on student support, on employment support, scholarships for students. Also really getting clear about what's the ROI, what's the return on investment. If you're going to spend a significant portion of your savings to send your students, your children to Canada, we want to know that there's a positive ROI at the end of that. So I think we're going to see this through plentiful co-op jobs, even more so in a way because the numbers are less. We have huge demand in our economy right now. That hasn't gone amidst all this negativity. Post-grad work permit opportunities will still be plentiful for the programs that are eligible. And those are all in high demand areas. I think there is a rhyme and a reason to this. And as we start to sort of recover from a lot of that constant changing of last year, I think this is an area that we want to focus on and telling these stories. I think, yeah, I would just continue to work with, actually one of the stories, I was listening to a lot of the videos of the students last night while I was preparing for this. And a lot of the students were commenting that they felt like this was a good combination of academic excellence and job opportunities. I think that's what, a lot of the college experience is based on, but as is the university experience, right? So I would focus on all of that. I think focus on working with your IDP counselors, and also they're here once you get here too. We have offices in Canada. So we work really closely with the schools, with their admissions team, with their student support team, with their housing team, and we can sort of be your partner right by your side through this whole process. So I'd also just note a lot of the students talked about safety, and I think that's really important, feeling safe on campus. There is some noise out there apparently that Canada is not safe. I have kids, they happen to be in grade 12, so they're putting their university applications in right now. And I can say that I live in Waterloo Region, and I'm in Toronto regularly and really all across the country. Canada is a safe country. I think that like any country in the world, you could have spots that you wouldn't recommend that you go to in Canada. But, common sense should prevail in that area. And I think, yeah, so I think my main message is cut the noise, listen to trusted providers such as IDP, your counselors, and the people on this panel, talk to the institutions and students on the ground through peer-to-peer services that Eric mentioned. So I think that's about it.
Would love to
for
go
this
by
question.
what you were
Thank you.
suggesting. Thank you, Christine. And I do remember the kind of student experience that you and your team has captured live. Very, very inspiring to listen to each and every student. And I will definitely encourage the audiences to go and listen to these student voices so that they will understand that what it means to take a quick decision and feel safe in Canada and pick up their choices of programs which will lead to PGWP. Thanks, Christine, for your comments. And I think I should now come back to Larissa once again. And now this round of questions would be a little more tougher because I can see the Q&A is also filled around employability, which is not a big concern in reality, but this is perceived as a big concern among the students in Canada or those choosing Canada as a study destination. So Larissa, my question to you here is that how are Canadian institutions and CBI ready to handle this concern in Canada right now? Could you please address us on this?
Thank you, Mukta. We know, as I mentioned, with the surveying that we do, the employability piece is one of those top 5 reasons our students, in fact, choose to come to Canada. I do want to add to what Christine said before I answer specifically. One of the top 3, in fact, consistently in every survey we've ever done is students choose Canada because it is considered safe. Not only safe, but tolerant and welcoming of newcomers. And that has, that remains unchanged. But when it comes to the employability piece, our postgraduate work permit, which does offer opportunities post-study to in fact gain labor market experience, to potentially pursue pathways into Canada, it is an attractive element for Canada in terms of us being seen as a viable study destination. And that continues to be the case. Yes, there have been changes, and I know Eric spoke to those and Allison a little bit. I did want to perhaps reiterate some of that because I think it's important that we have clarity on what that means. There have been some changes to the postgraduate work permit framework. And so in the case of university graduates, whether that be a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, a doctoral degree, those students that are graduating from Canadian universities in Ontario and in the rest of Canada remain eligible for postgraduate work permits regardless of their field of study, as do actually graduates of flight schools, which is kind of an interesting addition. For graduates of college programs and other university programs below that undergraduate level, there is a list. Everyone's talked about, the over 900 kind of fields of study that are in that list. I know everyone distills it by saying there's a smaller subset of kind of categories, but so there's programs of study in areas of agriculture and agri-food and the STEM, field or early childhood education. But within that, there's a broad range of opportunity. So I just want to be clear about that. It's not a set of, 6 or 7 potential occupations. We're talking about hundreds, in fact, almost 1,000 programs of study that can lead to different kinds of, employability pathways. And, that's an important piece. I think the way we've seen our institutions respond is institutions, as Allison and Eric have shared, they're really seeking to provide clarity in terms of where those opportunities lie, in particular on the college side, because there is a narrower list of opportunity. And so, as students are looking at course offerings, working specifically with the institutions that you may be considering to get that clarity around the programs. We're seeing a lot of, refinement and a lot of communication coming to students for them to be able to really understand where those choices lie. We have many, many critical areas in our labor market where there are shortages in every Canadian community. If I take simply the early childhood education as an example, Eric already mentioned, there's a need in London, there's a need in every Canadian community. Some of you may not be aware, for instance, that a little over a year ago, our federal government, in fact, announced a national childcare program for every province in this country. And that actually means we need more childcare workers, and we simply don't have enough that are graduating from our institutions in terms of our domestic students. It's one example, but just vividly to demonstrate that there are many, many opportunities that exist within the Canadian labor market. I will say that from a CBIE perspective, we are, actively advocating with the federal government and provincial governments to try to create, even more clear pathways. And, we are also advocating, and I expect that, in the coming months, we may see some additional programs be added to that PGWP eligibility list. Not thousands, but there might be some discrete ones. And certainly we'll be working with our institutions and with partners such as IDP to make sure that you have clarity about those opportunities. However, in that context, I think the biggest message that I would share is I think there are many, many meaningful opportunities around employability that exist. I think the other comment I would add, and I know it's been referenced in talking about co-op and other, our institutions, and this is one of the tremendous features of really gaining a Canadian post-secondary education, is we have a tremendous wealth of opportunity while you're studying to gain valuable work experience. So even before, you consider what happens post-graduation, co-op, work integrated learning, opportunities for credit within certain programs where you can in fact go out into the community either on a paid or volunteer basis and build networks and make connections that will facilitate, a job search post-graduation. These are also very rich features of the Canadian learning landscape that are a great, great benefit to students. And so I want you to be aware that those opportunities exist and you start to connect to them while you're studying. This isn't something that you begin to tackle when you step off campus after you've received that diploma or that degree. But in spite of the changes and the perception that there's this very, very narrow pool of opportunity, yes, there have been some changes, but there's a tremendous amount of space and opportunity that continues to exist in the Canadian labor market and in all of those communities, and certainly in Ontario.
Thank you. That's encouraging. We look forward for more and more programs. And while you were talking about early childhood education, well, from South Asia, there's a great interest, and we see lots of program choosing the students choosing this kind of a program. And the Q&A is also showing that there's a demand for healthcare programs, the demand for supply chain management, and students are looking forward to. And I'm sure since there are jobs around, and that's why the programs are aligned to these particular sectors. Thank you so much once again, Larissa. And let me take this similar question to Alison. Here, we would like you to be very specific with the specific programs and initiatives that Queen's University offer to support international students in achieving academic success, building strong career pathways, and integrating with the local community, especially amidst the dynamic opportunities and challenges in Ontario. So, Alison, this is for you to address.
Great, thank you. And just before I get to that question, I will also give my vote of confidence and support in saying we desperately need childcare workers. I sit on the board of my children's daycare, and we are constantly looking to fill vacancies. So if audience members are out there looking for something that is highly in demand in Canada, early childcare education is something that is critical to the function and the operation of many of us in the country. We don't offer it at Queen's University. It's our colleague Eric and college programs. That's where you're going to find that wonderful one. But more on to the Queen's side of the house. I did mention earlier just how committed, Queen's, Ontario universities, and colleges really are to fully supporting our international students in achieving their goals. And just a quick little anecdote at Queen's, one of our students, I think, really said it best. We're turning dreams into reality. So it was a really nice notion that one of our international students shared with us, and that's what we try to carry ourselves with in all the work that we do, is really leaning into how can we support the students to make sure that your dream becomes your reality. This is a whole community effort at Queen's, but we really have one showpiece hub for our students that really takes the lead in a lot of these efforts. It's called the Queen's University International Center. We often refer to it as QUIC, and it is the welcoming and supportive environment or hub for all of our international students. And there are 3 key initiatives that we're particularly proud of that they champion. The service that they provide as a whole is something that I think is pretty phenomenal. It's a dynamic space in and of itself that fosters that connection and belonging. But over the past year, they have held over 4,000 events, programs, and appointments that have created opportunities for academic, personal, and cultural growth that are addressing our students' most pressing concerns. The center hosted over 1,700 students at our pre-arrival and our orientation sessions, again, setting you up for a seamless transition into the university and to your success while you study. And the QUIC it serves as a home base for the cultural clubs, and it hosts over 400 events annually, making sure that our students not only are being supported academically, but also in their sense of belonging and their personal and their cultural lives. Second, I want to say is the collaboration that occurs across campus in partnership with QUIC. So our career advisors, and I mentioned we have a dedicated career advisor for our international students, embedded at QUIC, really provide that seamless career and immigration advice that helps students navigate that transition from the academic side of the house over onto the workplace. Our partnership with our Student Academic Success Services division has really helped to deliver programs like Write It and Speak Up, which are programs that blend both academic skills with intercultural awareness. They're targeted at our international students, but we have a lot of domestic students that participate in it as well, because it gives them a different perspective and it allows them to connect with diverse perspectives that they might not otherwise be able to get in touch with. And that collaboration extends all the way through into our residents' life with, I mentioned earlier, our early move-in options that help with that arrival experience so that you can really integrate into the community before the fun of our orientation week begins. The last one that I want to highlight really leans into that employability side of things. So enhancing your employability and your career pathways. I mentioned our career services team has dedicated career educators for our international students. They're embedded at Quick, and they offer that tailored advising and workshops and drop-ins that really help to address your unique challenges, including those immigration-related employment questions. And because the international student advisors are right there, it can be a very quick referral service. So the career advisor might not know a specific immigration policy, but the international student advisor does. So they can co-advise to really give you that holistic answer to the question that you have. Paid programs like our paid internships in our participating academic programs really help to provide that practical work experience. They help skill build for you. They help you gain social capital and networking. And our students really are supported through that post-graduation work permit program with that application guidance and mentoring that helps open the doors to the Canadian workforce and work opportunities after you graduate. I want to touch on two examples there. They're both very relevant to the audience here. Both of these students are from your region. One of our students, I won't disclose their names just for their own confidentiality, but one of our students, 4th year computing, came to us with some assistance of a scholarship and received a very prestigious internship program with RBC through their summer internship programs. This student was given a number of tasks over the summer and serious problems that RBC was trying to tackle, challenges especially with the rise of AI. And I think at first RBC thought they were just going to get maybe some ideas out of this student over the course of the internship. This student delivered a fully functional program that we're really proud to say RBC is adopting this year. They were putting it in motion, and RBC customers will be will have advantage or will be benefiting directly from the work of our student, and so much so that they were impressed with him. They have offered him full-time employment upon graduation. So those are just some of the links that happen, but not all of the students through internship want to go immediately into the workforce. We had another student in the math department. She actually was an intern in our office for a year, did a lot of work on data and statistics, and then went over to Stats Canada for the second part of her internship. Stats Canada wanted to keep her on, offered her full-time employment after graduation, but she declined because she got offered a graduate program at MIT. So again, it's these types of experiences that are really helping to open the doors for many of our international students. It's helping you build that social capital, that networking. Queens is really fortunate. We have some of the highest employment rates, both 6 months and 2 years after graduation in Canada. About 92% of our students are employed, and many of our programs, two of the programs that these two students were in, boast much higher rates than that. And clearly you can see why. The academics really do prepare them, as well as our advisors are there to support them through that. So I'm going to leave it there because I know we're getting short on time, but lots of opportunity for career advising, immigration advice that can really help you guys navigate what you want to do after graduation, not just within Canada, but wherever you land around the world.
That's very powerful examples and message, Alison, and very, very interesting to see the students' journey from scholarship to building up the entire model. We would definitely be very interested to know about the progress of such kind of students, and it will be very inspirational for the new aspirants to know and succeed as per these guidelines. Thank you so much for your comments. I would like to now move on to Eric for my next question, because this also is something which Larissa also touched base upon about the PGWP eligibility, the policy changes. So this question, Eric, to you is about how your college, Fanshawe, is leveraging its programs and industry partnerships, which makes overall Canadian education very, very promising for the international students to equip them with the skills and experience needed to thrive in Ontario's competitive job market, especially in the times of uncertainties around PGWP and policy changes.
Thank you. Yeah, I'd be happy to help and answer that question. And it's a common question I'm seeing come up in the Q&A. What about this program? Are there job opportunities in DSW? What about this master's degree? Will it lead to a career? I think lots of students have the same question for all of these programs. To Larissa's point earlier, the answer is yes to every one of those questions as it relates to, does this program have a job opportunity? The Government of Canada has listed a priority list of programs that have very clear labor market demand needs. So, to your question, Garima, about DSW, yes, there are roles in with that skill set. The other thing, to go back to your point or question, Mukta, is, as it relates to employment, I would say this is what colleges were set up to do. This is what we do every day. We are a very practical training experience, and it'll be a very different learning environment than what you're used to in terms of you come from a space, and most of the education you've had, these students have had coming into a college, is a very theoretical place where a faculty member might stand at the front of the room and lecture about a particular subject and teach a very particular subject. In a college environment, it's very much flipped on end. And where students are given an opportunity to practice the very skills required in the job market. So I'll give you some examples. In early childhood education, you're going to be working with children in learning environment, right? We're going to be practicing those skills with actual kids in placements, and that's an important skill set. If you're coming here to learn how to do welding, you're going to work at a station within a pod next to several of your classmates who are also going to be practicing what you've learned that particular day. So you'll have your equipment on and you'll actually be welding 2 pieces of steel. And this applies to all programs. If you're in cybersecurity, you're going to sit at a very high-powered computer system. You're going to work with your colleagues and cyber attack another school. And we do this in collaboration with our partners around the world. They'll attack you, and your work is to defend using the tools and techniques and skills that we've taught you in the classroom. You'll practice those skills in the classroom, and then the roles get reversed, and you use those same tools to try and attack your colleagues at a different institution through a very sophisticated software platform using the greatest and most latest technology that's out there. And so again, it's a very practical experience. In terms to your question about, how does this relate to the community and to our partnerships? In colleges, we're required to have what's called program advisory committees. And basically, that is a group of industry experts for each program. And we meet, each program and their leadership meets with those 12, sometimes 20 industry experts on at least a yearly basis to go through and identify what are the gaps in the industry, what do we need to be teaching our students so that they get jobs in your industry, what are the skills you need us to provide these students so that they're equipped to walk in the door and help you succeed in your business. And so that information is fed directly back into the program at every opportunity. And so it's very, very much connected. Furthermore to that, I would say at colleges, all of our instructors are industry experts. And so most of the time, and I'll give you the cybersecurity example, we have cyber experts who are working in the community, and they work for the big organizations in their cyber security space, and they teach for us part-time. And so they are in the industry, they're doing the work, and then they do the teaching piece, the skills training piece, not only to foster the pipeline of employees that are going to work for them at some point, but also to because they want to give back in terms of their community, and they do that as part of their, I guess, civil or social responsibility within the community. So we hire those experts to come into the classroom and teach what's actually happening. So the classroom's a very dynamic experience at a college. And again, like I said, it'll be very different than what most students on this call are used to. And those skills are really in high demand, of course, because I mean, it's very linked to industry at all times. The other thing I would say is, at Fanshawe, we have over 70 co-op programs. And so to your point, Mukta, about practical experience in the classroom, you're going to go out on placement. You're going to do those internships as part of your coursework. It's a really integrated component to what it is we do. The last thing I would say to this question is really about, your job search when you come to Canada starts the day you land. And at Fanshawe, your orientation starts with a career workshop, a career management workshop, where we show you, we teach you about what it is to work in Canada, and we start to address and teach you where those supports are going to be found across the college. That literally starts during the orientation session. We do a half-day orientation at Fanshawe, and an hour and a half of that time is dedicated to a career workshop. Following that, immediately within 5 days, there's a guarantee that you can have and sign up for a resume workshop. So again, how do we get you that part-time job as soon as you land in Canada, as soon as you get to our community? We want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for that success. You're not struggling 3, 4, 5 weeks into the term trying to find your part-time job while you're studying. And so again, those supports are in place, and we walk you through a very sophisticated process, I would say, to help you land that part-time job, begin networking within your community to find your full-time role, so that you're walking out of your college experience into a full-time job. So I'll leave it there, but there's a lot more to be said,
Yeah.
but that's enough.
I can understand. Yeah, thank you so much for taking up even the questions from the Q&A also, and addressing to some of the queries related to the programs. And I'm sure we have got a lot more to talk about, that what's there in store for the new aspirants. But keeping in the interest that I have got two interesting questions remaining for the students' benefit only. So I'll move on to Piyush now. So this will not be a question to you, Piyush. It's basically we want you to advise students with your experience that in the times of what we have been hearing from the rest of the panelists about the change in the programs, PGWP, eligibility, numbers and everything. So how would you advise the students to navigate these challenges and secure their future at Ontario-based institutions?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mukta. I know that there have been a lot of negative sentiments about Canada, especially in the South Asian markets. And again, I want to emphasize on this. A lot of it is pure noise. What are the top 3 concerns for these negative sentiments? Number 1, Canada is no longer a welcoming place. Why? Because Canada has put a cap. It doesn't want international students, right? And I just want to again share what I shared a little while earlier. Even with the caps, Canada is going to be taking the largest number of international student cohort compared to many other countries. So it's still a welcoming place. It still wants international students. It's just that it has reduced the number, which is in students' benefits only, because there were some concerns around housing or part-time jobs, etc. So if fewer students are going there, it would be easier for people who are going there now. As my fellow panelists were also saying, it will be easier to maybe find a house. It will be easier to find a part-time or a full-time job. The second concern is, PGWP changes were made. Now only 6 streams are there. That's a good thing. The government is actually telling you which are the programs which are in demand, where the jobs are. Earlier, there was no clarity. So people, from South Asia were, going to Canada, taking a whatever program they want or like. And then when you go there, and then when you do not find your programs having a demand in the job market, then you are disappointed. Then you will say Canada doesn't have any jobs, right? It's very good that the 6 streams which have been identified, and there are more than 1,000 programs, in those 6 streams. Just go and take one of those programs which you want to study. And because these programs are linked to job market needs, chances of you landing up a job is much higher than earlier when people were taking whatever program. So just to give you a very crude analogy, you cannot go and study ancient history and then complain I'm not getting a tech job, right? So you need to study something which is aligned to what the job market needs are. And the Canadian government has made it very transparent, very clear. So it's in the benefit of students, right? I think the fellow panelists have already answered the query about, housing problem, etc. and all. I just want to, end by just saying, do not believe a lot of stuff which you see on social media, which you read here and there. These are the facts which, for example, I'm telling you, right? And the only thing which, one of my colleagues in our Canada office, as he said, the only thing is just going to be cold, right? But it's going to be fun. That's what Canada is. Do not worry about anything. If you're going to Canada, just ensure you have enough warm clothes and take one of those 6 streams. It'll be fine.
Great, thank you so much. And I'm sure all the South Asians want to enjoy the lifestyle and climate of Canada, and at the same time, look for a better job prospects there. Adding on to your comments, Piyush, when Larissa was talking about having more and more programs being added up, the relevancy of the program chosen by the students make a lot of difference while they, look to study in Canada. Thank you so much. This is very encouraging input, and I will now have to move on to Christine for your comments on the differentiators for students to be aware of while taking assistance from Just Anyone or IDP. I think you are the best person to answer this, because we would like you to share some of the scope of support we offer to students through partnerships in Canada.
Sure. Thank you so much, Mukta. So absolutely. I think we have, as I mentioned before, we have counselors around the world, all over South Asia, but also here in Canada, which maybe not everybody realizes. So we have offices right in Toronto and in Vancouver, but we can help students virtually from across the country. So really important, and I think it ensures that you have that end-to-end support that you need. We also work with, I'd say, almost all, and in some way, all institutions across the country. So DLIs, designated learning institutions, quality institutions, such as Queen's and Fanshawe. And we can help advise you in terms of program, housing. We work very closely with admissions teams, student support teams. We can, through our colleagues at our partner schools, arrange for sessions from faculty, and we do this on a regular basis. Assistance and guidance is accounted, of course, provided by the institutions, but also by IDP staff in both countries. We are student first in all that we do. So we place students, and this is at the heart of IDP, at the right institution, in the right country, in the right program for you. So we would continue to do, I'd say, heed Piyush's advice. There's loads of programs to study. I think you want to do the research in terms of what are your strengths, what are your interests, and what does the job market offer. And that's the area that you want to be focused on. And you can work with counselors. I think with the noise, I'd really be sure when you're working and doing your research in terms of what institution, what city, and what program in Canada to work with trusted advisors, not just anybody. And I would not be taking, again, along this theme of the noise and social media, not taking advice from influencers on social media necessarily. So I just want to really keep reiterating that you're going to trusted advisors like your IDP counselor, and that we're here with you once you arrive in Canada, and working really closely with our partner institutions. I think that's about it. Yeah, thank you.
I think this is a great input for the families also to know that they're sending
Yeah.
their kids through a trustworthy hands and experience, which will be helpful for their future journey also. And having these webinars is also something very, very insightfully brought by IDP to all the new aspirants. So I'm little kind of stuck now between that listening to you guys more or actually calling it off the session. Wonderful session we have had listening to all the wonderful panelists, because we've already shot up our planned time by 10 minutes. But I think today's session was aimed at curing the hopelessness and fill it with positivity. It helps us expand our understanding of the mind. It allows us to think big and champion our thoughts and build the future. So let's expect our audiences also to be creating a brighter world for themselves. I would request all the audiences to reach out physically or virtually to the nearest IDP office for taking the next step of making it to Canada for your studies as international student, and get the best out of from your IDP counselor as suggested. It was wonderful talking and knowing your insights, all the panelists, right from Larissa, Alison, Eric, Christine, Piyush. Thank you so much for your time. I understand that you are in the different part of the world, different time zones that you're operating. I can see Piyush, probably this is the 8th meeting I can see that today is holding in. But I think it's worthwhile that if our students get insights and understanding and confidence by listening to all of you. So all the very best to everybody. Thank you for everybody's time. Have a great future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.